Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate AFL Show, back in the studio after last week's episode from the MCG. Now it's a massive episode again this week because I'll be looking back at what was an incredible round 2. I'm also going to look towards what will be a very interesting round 3. Let's get straight into round 2, and it started on Friday night between Collingwood and Richmond at the MCG. This one was a very close game throughout the entire game. It was very low scoring in the first half, only 6 goals kicked between the two sides at half time. It seemed to open up though in the second half, and Collingwood was able to snatch the victory after Richmond were in front by about a couple of goals. Collingwood were able to get back, and then a Darcy Moore free kick. He was given a free kick after a deliberate out of bounds was called. He just kicked it right into the hot spot. Riewoldt flew, tried to get the punch away. Pendlebury tried to mark it, but it just fell into the hands of the crummer, who was Grundy, and Grundy was able to snap it through for a goal to lead Collingwood to a 1-point win at the G after their round 1 game against the Sydney Swans, where they were absolutely smashed. They had a couple of injuries, a suspension, but they were able to bounce back and win by a point against Richmond. The final score 13-9-87 to Collingwood, 12-14-86. The goal kickers for Collingwood, Vassallo had a great game. He kicked 6 goals. Grundy kicked 2, including the winner. Moore, DeGuy, Langdon, Cloak and Aish kicked singles each, while for Richmond, Short and Riewoldt kicked 3 each. Lampert and Vickery kicked 2 each, while Martin and Lloyd got singles between them. It was a very good game, an absolute cracker to start round 2. Saturday there were 5 games, 5 massive games, and it started with Showdown 40 at the Adelaide Oval between the Adelaide Crows and Port Adelaide. Adelaide just demolished Port Adelaide from start to finish. At quarter time they were in front, Adelaide, 6-4 to 1-2. And then they just powered on from there, 13-5 to 4-8 at half time, 19-7 to 7-12 at three-quarter time, and then the final score being 22-12, 144, defeating the Power, 11-20, 86. The goal kickers for the Crows, Lynch kicked 6, Betts kicked 5, Jenkins kicked 4, Walker and McGovern kicked 2 each, including a Walker very good goal from the boundary line on his right foot. It just curved in to get a goal for the Crows. Layard, Brad Crouch and Malera kicked singles each for the Crows, while Port Adelaide, Young kicked 4, Wines and Boak kicked 2 between them, Howard, Wingard and Robbie Gray, who was the highest disposal getter of this game, kicked singles between them. Port Adelaide, they didn't really have the best round 1 game, and this one was just an absolute caning. The Crows just demolished them early, like I said, from start to finish. At the MCG at 2:10 PM, the Bombers took on Melbourne. Melbourne was strong favourites going into this game, but Essendon remarkably led at every single change, and in the end won the game 11-14-80 to Melbourne 10-7-67. Critics, they thought they wouldn't win a game this year. Well, they've won a game, and to be quite honest with you, I reckon they can go on and win about 3, 4, even 5 games this season after this remarkable win against the Demons. Darcy Parish, who was awarded the Rising Star nominee for round 2, kicked the winning goal to lead the Dons to their first victory of the season. The goal kickers, Merritt, Brown and Danaher kicked 2 each. Stokes, Hartley, Comer, Langford and Parish kicked singles between them, while for Melbourne, Kennedy kicked 3, Garlett kicked 2, Brayshaw, Hammers, Oliver, Watson, Hogan kicked singles each between them. Zaharakis had a good game. He was the leading disposal getter for the match. A great win for the Dons. The fans will be happy. Congratulations to them. And like I said, I reckon they'll win at least 3, 4, even 5 games this season. They're not the ghost team that people think. they've recruited players who can play. Maybe not the best players, but they have recruited players that can play the game. The Kangaroos travelled up to the Gabba to play the Lions. The Lions weren't too bad against the West Coast Eagles. They kicked over 100 points away from home, which is a pretty good effort against a side who are grand final contenders, or one of the favourites to make the grand final and win the premiership. They were in front at quarter time, the Brisbane Lions, but then after that, the Kangaroos were able to get their mojo back and steer away to a win. The final score being the Brisbane Lions 11-17-83, defeated by North Melbourne 17-15-117. The goal kickers for the Lions: Green kicked 2, Taylor Zorko also kicked 2, Beams, Bell, Lester, Rockcliffe and Walker kicked singles each, while for North Melbourne, Waite kicked 5, Brown kicked 3. He's having a good influence on North Melbourne again this season, just like he did last season. Dal Santo kicked 2, as well as Gibson and Harvey, and Goldstein, Petrie and Zeeble kicked singles each for the Kangas. The captain, Tom Rockcliffe, is expected to miss a fortnight after that calf injury during the game, so that's not good news for the Lions. They face a heavy task next week at Simmons Stadium against Geelong. Saturday night was highlighted by St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs. My team, the Western Bulldogs, of course. It was Nick Riewold's 300th game. It was also Maddie's match, which really put a bit of spirit into the game. And, well, the Dogs, how good were they in round one? They just absolutely bulldozed Fremantle right out of Etihad Stadium. It was just incredible to watch. And, well, they did pretty much the same in this game. They kept St Kilda to under 40 points and won the game 13-15-93 to St Kilda, 5-6-36. The Bulldogs are just such an exciting team. As a Western Bulldogs fan, I've never been this excited for such a long time, probably since we made the finals. Well, not last year, but a few years ago, when we were playing in preliminary finals and you know, finals like that. So just absolutely exciting for a Western Bulldogs fan, but also for the whole competition as well. It's just good to see. The goal kickers for St Kilda: Riewoldt kicked 2 in his 300th match. Nunes, Loney and Bruce kicked singles each. For the Western Bulldogs, Boyd kicked 3. Very good effort from him. He's still, of course, improving, but he will get there eventually. Stringer and Picken kicked 2. Picken tried to take an absolute hanger, but just couldn't hold on to it. It seemed so easy watching the replay. He just needed to hold it in his chest, but he couldn't quite hold it. Liberatore, McLean, Johannesson, Wallace, Hunter and Daniels kicked singles each for the Dogs. A great crowd of over 37,000 attended the game, which was Nick Riewold's 300th match. Okay, now the other game of Saturday night was Fremantle and Gold Coast at Domain Stadium. I said very strongly last week and was very confident that Fremantle would bounce back against the Gold Coast Suns, considering it was at their home ground. And I tell you what, they were beaten by 26 points. Just couldn't believe it. In fact, it just shows how down they are at the moment. But if it's anyone, Ross Lyon could possibly get them back up to where they were last year. So Gold Coast, like I mentioned, won the game by 26 points. The final score was Fremantle 14-16-100, defeated by Gold Coast 19-12-126. A very big smoky to make the top 8, I reckon, the Gold Coast Suns. They could just slot in there when no one expected it. The goal kickers for Fremantle: Ballantyne kicked 4, Fife, the Brownlow medalist of last year, kicked 3, along with Walters. Pavlich kicked 2, and Mundy and Main kicked singles each. For the Gold Coast Suns, Lynch, who signed a contract extension yesterday, kicked 5. Martin kicked 4, Ouchie kicked 2, as well as Malira and Davis, and Ablett, Sexton, Prestilia and Cameron kicked singles each. Aaron Hall was one of the best players. In fact, he was the best player of the game, and he's probably the best player at the Gold Coast Suns at the moment. I know Gary Ablett, very good player at the Gold Coast Suns, but Aaron Hall, he's the in-form player at the moment. He's had 2 games where he's had the leading disposals for each game for the Gold Coast Suns. He was leading the disposals last week when they played against Essendon, and he's done it again this week. He's an absolute jet of a player, very important player for the Gold Coast Suns. Sunday there were 3 games. It started at Canberra, Manuka Oval, between the GWS Giants and Geelong. Really enjoyed this game. I actually watched this game from start to finish and really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the way GWS played. They played some very good football, especially when Geelong really deserved to be in front at quarter time, considering all the shots they had. They just missed... They missed a lot of shots in that game, Geelong, and that's really what let them down. But also GWS was able to get right on top of them. And they won the match 13-11-89 to Geelong 11-10-76. GWS goal kickers, Griffin, who was probably the best player of the game, got 2 goals, as well as Smith and Johnson, who got 2 goals against his old side, proving that he's still got the momentum to still play in the game. Wilson, Gongilo, Shields, Scully, Munford and Hoskin. Elliott, who took a massive grab, got singles between them. Lobb also got a single for GWS. For Geelong, Hawkins kicked 3. He had a alright game. In fact, he had probably the best game for Geelong. The best player for Geelong that played well in that game. Bisglav's got 2. I always pronounce that name wrong. Stanley kicked 2. Lang, McCarthy, Caddy and Gregson all kick singles between them. Sunday, the grand final rematch, probably the game of the round. Didn't seem like that during the game because Hawthorn won once again by 46 points, just like they did in the grand final against West Coast. West Coast, they're just so poor at the MCG, and it's just ridiculous. They really should be closer. They seem like the team who are going to contend again for the grand final, but if they're going to lose games like this, and if they're going to lose by those margins to great teams, then they're just not good enough for the premiership. It's simple as that. The final score, Hawthorn 14-15-99 to West Coast 7-11-53. The goal kickers, Rioli kicked 4. He was back to his best. Had a good game on Easter Monday, but this was an even better game by him. Sisley kicked 4. McAvoy, Gunston, Lewis, O'Rourke, Brewston, Gibson kicked singles between them. Darley kicked 3. Kennedy, after getting 8 against the Brisbane Lions the week before, could only be restricted to a single. And Redden, McGovern, Cripps also kicked a single for the West Coast Eagles. Final game of the round was between Carlton and the Sydney Swans. They only met a few weeks ago at a NAB Challenge game, so they were back at the same venue. Daisy Thomas was back in for the Blues after that suspension. And, the Sydney Swans, they just really dominated from start to finish, did what they probably needed to do to get the 4 points. 20-11-131, the Swans defeated Carlton 10-11-71. Kerridge kicked 2, as well as Casbolt. Murphy, Gibbs, Cruiser, Boakhurst, Curnow and Everett kicked singles each for Carlton, while the Sydney Swans, Franklin kicked 4. Tippett probably played one of his best games for the Swans since he's arrived, to be honest. It was a very good display by him. Kicked 4. Want to see more of it, of course, throughout the year, because that's what they brought him for. Sinclair kicked 3. Pabley kicked 2, as well as Kennedy, Heaney, Cunningham, Parker, Robertson and Hewitt kicked singles each. So that rounds out round 2 in what was an incredible round. Fremantle losing, Essendon winning their first game, Collingwood winning by 1 point, the Dogs smashing it for a second week in a row. It was just a fantastic round. Of course, GWS beating Geelong after Geelong looked so good on Easter Monday. And then, of course, the other story as well, Hawthorn beat West Coast by 46 points. It was a fantastic round, and it's time to get in now to the stats after round 2. Okay, so from now on, after each round, we're going to have a look at a few more statistics throughout the season on this show. So we're going to have a look at the goals like we have been looking at. We're going to have a look at not only the goals but also the marks, the tackles and also the disposal leaders as well, because I feel like they're important, and I like my stats. I actually like the stats of the game and who's leading what and who's winning in some of the minor kind of areas. So we'll start with the goal kickers. The leading goal kickers for the Coleman medal, Josh Jenkins currently leads with 9 goals. Kennedy and Lynch follow him on 9 goals. Waite is on 8, and for Solo, after his 6-goal bag, is on 5th with 7 goals. Disposal leaders after round 2, Sam Mitchell currently leads with 73 disposals. Gibson, who had a very good disposal game against West Coast, he is second, just following Sam Mitchell on 68 disposals. Aaron Hall, who has had the leading disposals for his club in the first 2 of his matches with the Gold Coast Suns this season, is on 68. level with Josh Gibson. David Zaharakis is on 4th with 67 disposals, and Patrick Dangerfield didn't have the best of games against GWS, but had a very good game on Easter Monday against the Hawks, is on 5th on 66 disposals. For the marks after round 2, Rory Lade leads with 21 marks. Joe Danaher is 2nd on 20. 3rd, Lockie Hunter on the same. Josh Kennedy's on 4th with the same 20 marks. And Nick Rewalt is on 19 marks. For the tackles, Luke Dalhouse, the doggy, one of the best players for the Dogs, actually, in my opinion. One of my favourites as well, Luke Dalhouse. 19 tackles he's applied. He leads with Langford 2nd on 19. I guess they're joint leaders, aren't they, really? Rich on 16 tackles. Ablett on 15 tackles, applying the pressure there. And also Luke Dunstan is 5th with 15. So he's level with Ablett there on tackles. So that is the stats after round 2. We get into the ladder now. And on the ladder we see the Western Bulldogs currently leading like they were in round 1 after their stunning wins against Fremantle and St Kilda. They topped the leaderboard. You can see there Fremantle and St Kilda on the bottom 2. The 2 teams they've defeated so far are on the bottom 2, so that's pretty funny, I guess. Sydney Swans on 2nd, Gold Coast Suns on 3rd, and North Melbourne on 4th. The top 4 there are undefeated. Carlton, Brisbane, Fremantle, St Kilda, the bottom 4 are yet to get wins in season 2016. Okie dokie, time to get into round 3. Like I said, a very interesting round, like every other round will be this year. It's just that kind of season this year. It is just going to be very, very interesting, very close. So round 3 starts on Friday night at Adelaide Oval between Port Adelaide and Essendon. I reckon this could be a close game. The way that Port Adelaide have been playing and the way that Essendon played on Saturday, that very famous win against Melbourne, they could take it up to them and maybe get close to winning the game. I'm not going to say they're going to win the game, but I think it could be a close contest. So Friday night, 7:50 p.m. at Adelaide Oval. It is Port Adelaide v Essendon. That is Australian Eastern Standard Time. My tip for this one is going to be Port Adelaide. I am going to stick with Port Adelaide to bounce back after last week's thrashing in the showdown. Saturday, another 5 games. It starts with St Kilda and Collingwood at the MCG, starting at 1:45 p.m. local time. And going to be a very good game, this one, I think. I don't think Collingwood will have it their own way. I think St Kilda will take it up to them. They could even win the match. I wouldn't be quite surprised if they did, but I'm going to stick with Collingwood. This is St Kilda's first home game at the MCG for the season. So looking forward to seeing how they go at the MCG. It's going to be a good game, like I mentioned, but Collingwood is my tip there. The next game at 2:10 p.m. at Etihad Stadium, just down the other side of Melbourne, basically. It is Richmond and Adelaide. Richmond looking to bounce back after their 1-point defeat of Collingwood. Adelaide, fantastic winners against the Power. Of course, won their first game last week. Very interesting game this week, and I think Richmond are expected to get Ivan Marek back in and players like that, so they're going to have a bit of a better side with those players back in. I'm going to go the home side. I know that's a big call considering how Adelaide went last week at Adelaide Oval, but I think Richmond, they might just bounce back and win this game being at Etihad Stadium. I don't think Adelaide... I don't think they do too well at Etihad Stadium, to be quite honest. I'm not sure about the stat on that, but it'll be a close game anyway, either way. The next game, 4:35 p.m, the twilight game. It is the Battle of the Bridge, as it's been known. I don't think it's known much for that anymore, but I guess if you want to call it that, you can. The Sydney Swans and GWS. Could be a good game, this one. It's at the SCG, like I said, 4:35 p.m, the twilight game. I'm going to stick with the Sydney Swans. I think they're in such good form at the moment. I think they could, the way they're going, they could make the top 4. It's just that Franklin is in form. Tippett's now starting to come in form. GWS will take it right up to him, no question about that, but I think the Sydney Swans are going to win this game. 2 Saturday night games. The Suns take on Carlton at Metricon Stadium. Could be a good game, this one, but I think the Suns, being that they're undefeated, will just blow Carlton right away, so I guess it won't be a good game, to be quite honest with you. So that game there, 7:25 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Then, the last Saturday night game at 7:40 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, West Coast and Fremantle, the derby. It is going to be a very interesting game, this one, isn't it? And I have a feeling, even though West Coast you know, they probably seem like they're a better team than Fremantle. I just have a feeling that Fremantle are going to get up. I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling that Fremantle are going to bounce back and win their first game of the season this week. They have to. It's simple as that. On Sunday, 3 games like there usually is. It starts at Blundstone Arena in Hobart, here in my hometown. It is North Melbourne taking on Melbourne. This is one of 3 games that North Melbourne are playing at Bellerive Oval, as it's also known. This year, I'll be at this game, of course. I'll be at most Hobart games this year, probably all of them, I'd say. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. North Melbourne undefeated, of course. They should win pretty comfortably, but I'd like to see Melbourne take it up to them and try and bounce back after last week's loss. They'd be furious, probably. But anyway, that game, 1 p.m. Hobart time, or Australian Eastern time there. The game of the round for me, definitely for probably the whole competition, the Western Bulldogs taking on Hawthorn. Going to be a very big game. The Western Bulldogs this time last year, they had won their first 2 against West Coast and Richmond. Went to play Hawthorn at Aurora Stadium. I was there at this game. Weren't quite ready for it, I don't reckon. They didn't have the side that they have now, and they probably weren't as strong as they are now. So I reckon they definitely are more than ready to take on Hawthorn, and they definitely are more than capable of winning against Hawthorn because of their back line, you know, the way they move up the ground, the way the players get behind the ball when it's going up in their defence. They just play some great football. So for me, being a Dogs supporter, I'm going to tip the Dogs, obviously. But this game at Etihad Stadium, 3:20 p.m, of course. That's the mid-afternoon game, I guess you could call it. And then the last game of the round at 4:40 p.m, the twilight game at Simmons Stadium, Geelong's first game in Geelong for the season. It is Geelong taking on the Brisbane Lions. It is going to be a game that Geelong should win. The Brisbane Lions will be travelling without Tom Rockcliffe, so that is not good news for them. If they can kick over 100 points again away from home, then I think they should be very impressed. And if they can take it up to Geelong, then I think they should be very impressed as well. But Geelong at home at Simmons Stadium should easily win this game. Okay, so that brings this episode of the Ultimate AFL Show to a close. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to get a new episode of this to your newsfeed every Wednesday. I just love presenting this show because the footy is just so exciting. It's probably the best we've seen it in a long time at the moment. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's simple as that. And I reckon everyone would be struggling to tip 9 in their tipping each week. So don't forget to subscribe. Really would appreciate it. And yeah, until next week, I'm Jacob. Enjoy your round 3. Bye for now.